Doc Flynn, thanks for joining us. Arcand and Mego here.
Hey, Doc.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me. I wish it was better circumstances.
Absolutely. So I saw that you tweeted just a few hours ago that Damar Hamlin spent last night in the intensive care unit. He remains there today in critical condition in the University of Cincinnati Hospital. So first of all, critical condition. I mean, that sounds like a pretty wide-ranging level of care. For what he suffered in terms of that cardiac arrest last night, what kind of processes or care would you expect him to be undergoing in the intensive care unit right now?
Yeah, well, critical condition is a term that we don't really use inside a hospital. It's really more to explain to patients and families and the media, how a patient's doing. And you're right, it can mean a variety of things. In intensive care, it just means that, he's requiring round-the-clock care. And in his case, he was intubated, so managing his airway, making sure he has good circulation, things like that. Those are the types of care that you get in the intensive care unit.
Doc, last night on your blog, you wrote that there wasn't enough information really to explain what was happening, and that you didn't have enough information, and that people shouldn't be speculating. I agree, people shouldn't be speculating here. I wonder if today any more information has come to light that can sort of maybe shape a little bit more of a diagnosis from you or something else.
No, unfortunately not. And I think this is a case where, it's really different when I'm talking about an ankle sprain. I mean, I can see that happen. I can watch the video. I can see what the mechanism is. I can see what happened. But when you talk about things like concussions or, this sort of worst case cardiac arrest, there's nothing to watch. There's nothing to talk about. This is, a man's life that's really, on the line, and anything we talk about would be conjecture. Really, this is where we have to stick to the facts. We know the most recent report, I think, was like at 3 p.m. The team came out and said that he was still in intensive care. He was still in critical condition. And until the team or the family have more updates for us, I think we just have to go with what we know.
So obviously not speculating here, but the reports are that he was in cardiac arrest on the field, went into cardiac arrest, that they administered the CPR for over 9 minutes and then brought out the defibrillator, which they had from the ambulance. What kind of circumstances cause a 24-year-old extremely healthy, fit professional athlete to go into cardiac arrest the way that we all had to watch last night?
It's a good question, and luckily it's a very rare event. Thankfully in young athletes, but it does happen, and it happens in every sport. Football is not the most common, but we see it. I think I heard you talking earlier about lacrosse. I also played lacrosse in college, and I'm happy my sons now wear these new souped up chest protectors that have a bigger, place to take impact from balls. From chest trauma. But there are a lot of reasons. In young people, it's oftentimes something genetic or something structurally that's different in their heart that can cause this to happen. Sometimes it is a blow to the chest, something called commotio cordis, where the blow to the chest just happens at the wrong millisecond in the heart cycle, and it can sort of short circuit the heart. We don't know which one of these was the cause last night, and I've heard a lot of speculation today from even medical people in the media, and I just think it's important to remember we truly just don't know yet.
Doctor, are there heart conditions that maybe a person doesn't have in their childhood that sort of develop in their teens and 20s that may go undiagnosed? I mean, we all sort of remember Reggie Lewis back in the 90s, and, we hear about other things like this with young athletes. Is that a thing that happens?
It is. I mean, many of them, again, are genetic, but they may not really cause a problem until athletes get older. But usually there is some sort of genetic, undertone. So it was already there, but it develops as the athlete gets older, the athletic challenges get more significant, et cetera. That's when you can start to see it.
We're talking to sports medicine Dr. Jess Flynn. So, Jess, I'm wondering, since you've treated injuries and seen so many traumatic injuries in football. You say that this isn't something that is specific to football. How do you feel like it should be treated in terms of, I guess, the way that people talk about, football is such a violent sport, and isn't this just another horrible injury to be an example of that? I'm not saying that, but it's definitely some of the conversation that I've seen out there about this is just another instance of how dangerous this sport is.
Yeah, Megan, that's a good question for me in particular because I have 3 sons. My 13-year-old son is my middle kid, and he lives and eats and breathes for football. And I always said he would never play football as a sports medicine doctor. I've just seen, and actually in my case, it was more like the terrible knee injuries I was seeing because of the sport. But, ultimately I just made the decision for him that it was better for him to play than not play. And the only way that he was allowed to do that was either to be kicker or to have his mom coach. So I've been coaching middle school football for 2 seasons now.
That's how bad he didn't want to be a kicker?
I think that was more suffering than any knee injury could have caused him. But, football is a game where the point of every play is to take the ball carrier down. And there's always contact on the line of scrimmage on every single play, right? So you can't say that that's a safe sport. But my kids also ski. My kids also play lacrosse. And I just had to kind of come to terms with and educate myself about the specific risks of each sport, right? And as far as this chest trauma, this is just such a highly unusual and luckily very rare injury to happen. And, I'm not more concerned about my child playing football as far as his risk of having a heart event like this than playing basketball or lacrosse. There's just, the risk is very low, but it's sort of spread throughout the sport.
So you mentioned that chest trauma. Are you saying that there is a high likelihood that the chest trauma from the hit could be the reason that we saw him go into cardiac arrest? I know you mentioned some of these pre-existing conditions.
Yeah, so commotio cordis is what you're referring to. And no, I'm not. I saw the chest trauma. Yes, it's on the list of possibilities, but I would never speculate on that because we just simply don't know. Nothing that we've been told so far or seen so far gives us any hint as to the cause. And so unfortunately, it's one of those situations where I want to give you guys comfort. I want to tell you, what's going on, but I just can't. We just don't know enough yet.
We're talking with Doc Flynn. Doc, what did you think of the way the NFL handled everything last night?
I thought the one thing that gives me the most hope about the situation is that a young, healthy athlete went down and got the best medical care possible for that situation within seconds. The fact that this is something that's drilled, and it's not just at the NFL level, this is even in youth sports, it's drilled regularly. They had everyone and everything they needed right there. They had a physician who could manage an airway. And, I don't think that the EMTs, quite frankly, get enough recognition for their role in situations like this. If someone has a cardiac arrest, it's most likely the first person that gets to them is going to be an EMT. And they deserve a lot of credit. There's a shortage of EMTs right now. And, so I just want to take this opportunity to just give them a shout out because we're always talking about the doctors, the nurses, the team medical staff. But the EMTs were right there. They got the athlete off the field as quickly as they safely could.
It's a great.
And so I think.
Sorry, go
I think
ahead,
they did a great job.
Yeah,
no, I'm sorry. I get emotional thinking about it because these teammates are amazing, and I work with them every day, and they should know they're appreciated.
It's a great point. I think people maybe realized that are not at the games all the time that there is that ambulance under the stands every game for instances like this. We don't often, luckily, we don't see it on the field that often. But for Damar Hamlin, regardless of what caused this cardiac arrest event, for what he's looking at in terms of a road to recovery, what are the kind of different paths that the doctors at the UC Medical Center may be taking in terms of over the next couple of days, the next couple of weeks? What are they looking at for top of mind?
Well, for any athlete, any patient in the ICU who's had a cardiac arrest, the main thing is just stability of the patient's ability to perfuse their tissue, meaning their ability to circulate blood, right? So their heart beating normally, their ability to breathe normally. So that's the first hurdle for every patient that comes in. And once that happens, then, reassessing and just hoping there was no neurologic damage as a result of a cardiac arrest. Those are the two big things. And neither are specific to this case. So there could be other things going on that we don't know anything about. Again, I would just say we hopefully will get good updates soon.
Doc, prior to last night, I feel like the conversation about concussions and certainly Tua Tagovailoa with the Dolphins was really the dominant one when it came to player safety in the NFL. Obviously, that's been overshadowed, but if we could just take a step back to that for a moment, that was a situation where the league and the players union both came out and said nothing really triggered the protocol and that, no one was really at fault. What did you think about that joint statement? And should someone like Tua, who's already had 2 concussions, be on sort of a heightened alert with his team?
Yeah, so in that situation, again, football is a violent sport. Like I said, everyone's trying to get to the ball carrier and hit them, and oftentimes that's the quarterback. And I don't think any of the athletes want to be pulled off the field for a hit that, heads hit the turf all the time, and there was nothing specific about that one hit. He didn't stand up. He didn't exhibit any signs, apparently, to the spotters. We didn't see anything on the broadcast. I don't think athletes want to be pulled every time they get hit, right? There needs to be a good reason. Otherwise, the game's going to be stopping all the time. And I'm not trying to be callous. I'm being realistic. And these guys, they want to play football, right? They want to play the game they love. In Tua's case, it still was a matter of, he can take a hit, but if he exhibits symptoms, then that's a reason to evaluate him. And some of them have to be self-reported, the symptoms, and then the signs are if they're wobbly when they stand up, if they're not making sense, if, they're confused in the huddle, things like that. I think the investigation made a lot of sense, and certainly going forward, he needs to have some real discussions about if he should be going back and when he should be going back to the game of football. Unfortunately, it's a gray area. There's no real guidance for that.
Dr. Jess Flynn, thank you so much for joining us and enlightening us with things that are definitely out of our realm, but we love talking to you even under these unfortunate circumstances.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Doc.
All right, you can find her at Doc Flynn, that's with 2 N's, NFL, on Twitter. Doc Jess Flynn, she has great insights into various injuries that NFL players suffer, unfortunately, but very, very insightful.